course. Come in. Come in. Come in. Come in. Come in. Hurry. Right in there. Good. Yes. All right. See what we got here. I'll pull these back. I'm just going to press on your tongue.
What's wrong with her?
Oh, it's all right. She has appendicitis. All right, it's all right. We'll take care of you, all right? All right. Hold her down.
No one has ever known what happened that night. Yet it is a story that goes on even today. Is the pain and horror of that cold, rainy night being lived over and over? Perhaps it's time that someone look into the Sallie house.
All right, can you tell us a little bit about what you've heard about the Sallie house?
My dog won't even set foot on the property where the Sallie house is. I don't even believe in that stuff, but I would never go in the Sallie house. I don't know anyone who's gone over there and said they'd go back.
It's one of those places that everybody, well, most people know about. It was talked about on TV.
But you'd never go there?
I would never go there.
Do you believe in it, the haunting?
Yes, I do believe that we used to live in a haunted house. I mean, it's just a bad house.
Nestled quietly in the Kansas bend of the Missouri River, Atchison is a small, rural farming community 50 miles northwest of Kansas City. These days, it is home to the Benedictine College and known as the birthplace of Amelia Earhart. Also called the Window to the West, this town was site of one of America's premier railheads. 150 years ago, freight trains arrived here on a daily basis, loaded with cattle just in from the famous drives of that era. About that same time, a legend was being born. Atchison would soon become home to one of the most haunted houses in North America, the Sallie house, a haunting that has driven one family after another from its doorsteps. Now, two paranormal experts have been brought to the location to see if they can find any answers to this most mysterious and provocative haunting.
And that was the largest Indian Aboriginal burial sacred ground.
Where was this at?
In Point Edward, Ontario.
And you were there, and
I was the one who said there you'll find the 5 bodies right here, and that spurred the whole dig, all through the government areas and everything.
Excellent.
Yeah, he's holding the skull and he's going, I guess you were right.
And being right about the unknown is what makes Robbie Thomas something special. Author, spiritual guide, and psychic. For the past 16 years, Robbie Thomas has worked compassionately to bring peace of mind to the families and loved ones of the dead, sometimes reaching across that dread void to comfort the dead themselves. Broadcasting on his weekly radio show, A Link to Heaven, Robbie addresses questions whose answers few could know. Having authored 3 books about the spiritual world, Thomas is one of the premier paranormal investigators in North America. In the summer of 2007, he tried to help authorities find the missing child, Cesar Aguilar Cano, offering authorities the boy's location. Days later, they found the body of the child, just where Robbie had predicted. This was just one of many instances in which Robbie Thomas has helped connect those who are living with those who have been lost.
Hello, I'm Robbie Thomas, psychic medium, paranormal investigator from Canada. I'm here in Atchison, Kansas to take you for a ride in one of the most haunted homes in America, the Sallie House.
Ever ride on a ghost trolley? Every year, hundreds of people come to Atchison, Kansas to load up on the haunted trolley and visit the Sallie House. This modest-looking home has become an infamous tourist destination for ghost hunters and curiosity seekers alike.
Now, according to legend, Sallie was a young girl who died on the operating table in this house, which was a doctor's home and office, with her last memories being of a man she believed was torturing her. Sallie is said to exact her revenge on men who entered this home.
Joining him is longtime colleague Michael Esposito, an expert in EVP or electronic voice phenomena. Esposito uses enhanced audio technology to prove the existence of the afterlife, a realm Michael glimpses carefully listening to the ambient noises of environments like that of the Sallie House.
I captured a lot of EVP at the Sallie House, and here are some of the very best EVPs that I've captured at the Sallie House or anywhere. Now that one was captured when we were sitting at the dining room table in the dining room of the house, and we were in between recording sessions.
This would not be Michael's first trip to the Sallie House. In fact, he has gathered a number of shockingly distinct EVP samples from this mysterious haunt. Sitting quietly on 2nd Street in Atchison, Kansas, the Sallie House has become one of the most notorious haunted houses in all of America. It is an old structure built sometime between 1867 and 1871 by Michael C. Finney. It is important to remember that last name because it is Michael Finney's son, Dr. Charles Finney, that is believed by some to be the evil entity that still haunts this seemingly innocuous abode.
I mean, a lot of people believe that Dr. Finney is one of the bad spirits in the house. I don't think Dr. Finney was always like that. I think it's something in the house that attached itself to him a long time ago.
Heidi Harmon has visited the Sallie House on more than one occasion. As a psychic and medium, Heidi believes she has seen Dr. Finney still lurking on the premises of the Sallie House. In fact, she suspects that it is he who is behind some of the recorded attacks on the property.
And what I saw and heard was Finney standing in the corner laughing. And then I heard another little girl saying, "It's a trick. I'm sorry, you're being tricked. It's a trick. It's a trick." And Finney just laughing.
Was Sallie trying to warn Heidi? Knowing that Dr. Finney practiced medicine from this residence at 508 2nd Street, can we assume that Sallie was trying to tell her about the evil that still lurks there? These are a few of the questions that Robbie Thomas was hoping to answer, and it wouldn't take long once he was in the house to come up with his own impressions of Dr. Finney.
My impressions of Charles Finney: cold, conniving. When I first entered the Sallie House, it was beyond any scope of imagination. It was the feeling of evil. Charles Finney, in my own feelings, now I don't say think, I say feelings, was walking in the shadow of his father, a wannabe, if you will. Now, take that and what I've just said in itself. Come Sallie to the Sallie House. I feel that wrong was done, and it was done by his hand. So giving him the power, if you will, that's what he took, and that's what he did. The evil of what men do.
But Robbie is only visiting. What about the people who live near the Sallie house?
My son was 3 years old, and we just moved next door. He would wake up quite frequently every night, complaining of monsters. He was waking up every night around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But one night in particular, I heard him screaming, and it was that scream where you know, okay, this isn't just a dream or a nightmare. So I run into his room, and as soon as I get through the door, every hair on my body stood up. And I find my son underneath the blankets with just his eyes peeking out, with his finger showing me where this monster is. It's going around his bed, and he goes, the monster. And he said it was black and that it could fly. I took him out. I got my other son out of the crib, and we went and slept in my room. But you can see his room faces right next to the Sallie house.
Located just to the north of the Sallie house is Michael Finney's original home, 510 North 2nd. Like his son, he was also a doctor. And living next door in another Finney home has provided some very chilling moments for Kate and her family.
Investigators invited us over to be part of their investigation since we live next door. So we all went down into the basement and just to see what we could find. There's a lot of spooky stuff down there. There's a cellar, there's a crawl space, and I was on the staircase. A lot of people were down on the main floor, and someone had turned the light off, and they wanted to get pictures using their night vision cameras. Well, as soon as they did that, this brick appears out of the ceiling and is thrown at us. And so we turn the light on, we look at it. Well, the brick's kind of moldy, like it's been outside for a long time. Now, mind you, there's no bricks in the basement. It's a stone wall. It's a wooden ceiling. There's no stockpile of bricks in the corner or anything like that. So we turn the light off again, it happens again. That night, it would happen over and over. I would stand on the stairs, but I don't want to go in the basement.
Just north of Kansas City is the small community of Atchison, Kansas. Known for being the home of Amelia Earhart, it has also become the destination for many paranormal investigators, and they come to visit the Sallie house. Notorious for being the most haunted house in America, even the next door neighbor is curious about what goes on inside.
I decided to have my brother and his family over for barbecue in the backyard. So we're out here grilling. Well, my two nieces, curious as to what's going on over here, was asking if they could go in the house, and I said, well, you can't go in the house, but I said, Les won't mind if you look through the window. So we come out here, and I tell them, well, look through this back door here, because there's been things that have been seen through here. So they're looking like this. While they're over here, I decided I wanted to go over here and see if the radio would turn on like it has before. So I come over here, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden, something grabbed me from behind and just had a hold of me. And so I take off running. And I'm laughing and almost crying at the same time because I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm being grabbed.
But the next door neighbor isn't the only one snooping around the Sallie house. Robbie Thomas brought a spirit-sensitive Great Dane with him on his investigation. What you are about to see is actual footage shot one day after Robbie's initial walkthrough, in which he determines the Sallie house's hot spots. The most active of them all was the upstairs front bedroom closet.
My ears are freezing cold. My neck is cold. It's very cold in here. Very much so. And I can feel the presence of a young child here.
As is his routine, Robbie Thomas normally does a walkthrough the day before any scheduled events in any houses that he reads. In the case of the Sallie house, Robbie noticed a room upstairs that would come to his attention. The following day, a large, spirit-sensitive dog was brought into the same area.
How do you feel? Hey, come on.
Eddie, come over here. Come see something.
You want to go in there? You don't like that? Come on. Come here, me. Now, this is it. Right here.
He doesn't like that one.
She's here. Come here.
Although Robbie never was successful in getting the dog to go into the room, the event still managed to raise the hair on his arms. So what exactly was it that the dog sensed about the room? In doing his walkthrough, Robbie narrates his spiritual impressions to Michael Esposito, who is recording this session. Esposito will later analyze the tape in his search for EVP.
So it's almost like I'm being shoved in there, locked in there, and I'll let you know when it's good and ready. That's what I'm getting. So shut up. This is where you're going. It'll come out when I'm ready. And again, this goes to the older child.
Robbie Thomas will do a walkthrough of the entire Sallie house, putting together the psychic impressions from each room. Many times, these impressions will tell a story, and the story in the main bedroom small closet is troubling.
And I can honestly see, to me, 14 years of age, roughly 13, 14 years of age, kneeling down, and I can hear the sobbing in this corner here of being put there. Boy, oh boy, you know, I want to go beyond the part of saying that I was abused like a child to the worst abuse that you could have, and this is one that's been.
But the upstairs closet wasn't the only room in the house that had a story to tell. In the basement, Robbie's impressions would become physical as he senses the touch of two small girls.
I come, I play. I'm not supposed to be here, but I ride and hide too. So I get two sensations of why I want down here. I play and I'm not supposed to, or I get in trouble. There's some sort of trouble and I hide in here. And right now somebody is pulling on my baby finger. I can feel the sensation of pulling on my baby finger. A name that comes is Anna. There's a name that comes Anna. A-N-N-A. Anna. Now, Anna, Emily, Anna, Emily, Anna. There's two names. Emily, Anna. There's two names. So that's gotta be. And again, I'm getting a sensation on my pinky finger of pulling right now. And again, there it is, and it's big. It's pulling my baby finger. And when I want to go this way, over to this wall, over here.
And while Robbie was holding hands with two girls named Anna and Emily, Mike's recorder caught these voices from beyond.
There are more than 1, 2, 3 spirits here. Again.
Did you hear that? Since EVP is carried on the sounds that are ambient in a room, it is hard to discern the subtle messages that lay within. Listen again.
1, 2, 3 spirits here. Again. 1, 2, 3 spirits here. Again.
Some EVP are more apparent than others. Many times they are shrouded in the ambient noise that carries them. A few minutes later, Robbie was being pulled behind the heating unit and almost out of view of our camera. In the darkness, he would encounter orbs of light suggesting a high amount of psychic activity. During Robbie's reading, Mike would record a very faint message.
So this to me is a bunch of orbs. I got my eyes closed and I can see maybe 10, 12 different types of orbs. In this area here, there's a bunch of activity. So I feel that, again, Anna, Emily, Anna, Anna, Emily. Those two names back and forth are coming. I'm getting the significance of being called both.
Now listen after we overlay Mike's enhanced version of the same exact moment. The eerie voice from beyond can be heard saying, "He's in power."
Anna, Emily, Anna Emily. Those two names back and forth are coming. I'm getting the significant.
Listen again.
Anna Emily. Those two names back and forth are coming.
The following day, Mike and Robbie would take a group of amateur ghost hunters through this same basement, showing the locations of unexplained phenomena, updating them on his recent walkthrough, and reviewing some of the tortured history of the Sallie house and its effect on those who have come to call this place home. For a while, anyway.
Well, that lady that lived there, the reason she wouldn't let people go past her wasn't because she kept a bad, unneat house. It was because she was a witch. She practiced witchcraft. She painted a pentagram on the floor here. Les covered it up, but that's what got her evicted.
As you might have guessed, not everyone has to be evicted from the Sallie house. Upstairs, Mike tells about another one of its tenants' adventures.
Yeah, back in the 90s, this is when they finally decided not to come back here no more. That's when they were living here. He got thrown. He was in his bedroom here, and the dresser here started to shake and shimmy. The bed was jumping up and down. There was a thing on top of the dresser which was literally spinning around. He couldn't get the door open, and he was calling for Deborah, and he couldn't get the door open. He got the door open, and something shoved him right almost under that railing. And this is actually the door where he got thrown into on the 18th. He was standing here with two cameras. Deborah was there with smudging, and he got shoved. He got thrown about a foot off the ground and about 3 feet over. One of his shoes that were laced remained right where he was standing. Like someone being hit by a car or a train.
The family Michael Esposito is talking about is the Pickmans. The Pickman family is the reason that the Sallie house came to the public's attention. For 22 months, the Pickman family would live in that horrid house on 2nd Street. They would stay there despite a number of fantastic events, right up to the point when Tony Pickman would become concerned for the life of his wife.
One day, she had left for work. I had the day off. And that morning, I just sat and would watch her get ready for work, and the whole time I'm thinking, I just want to hurt her. I wanted to stab her, to be honest with you. That was the thought going through my mind.
Within a week, the Pickmans would pack up and be gone. But their last visit to the Sallie house would come 14 years later. It would be the last time they would ever set foot on the property.
So we went back and we pulled up to the house, and Renee, I forget what she said, but...
Said she saw someone move.
Renee Liker is a paranormal investigator and good friend of the Pickmans. It was she who was with the Pickmans on their last visit and would witness what happened.
When we pulled up, there was a huge, dark, shadow person getting up out of a rocking chair, almost like someone had been sitting there waiting on us to pull up, and oh, here they are, let's get ready.
You could hear, I knew there was something wrong in her voice. It was almost like a dread in her voice, or there was something so significant about her voice, and she talked about how she saw a dark figure get up from what was a chair in the living room and walk towards the kitchen. And we got to the front door, and I'm checking with both of them. Are we still sure we're going to do this? And they're like, well, yeah, sure. And I could still see reserve. And if I would have followed my gut instinct, I maybe should have said, let's not do this. But we didn't. We walked in, and the whole...
Yeah, just the feeling in the house was different. It had a
very
real heavy
heavy
feeling this time.
But the Pickmans did go into Sallie house that night, and before long, they would find themselves in a master bedroom. It was the same room Robbie Thomas would later discern was the center of paranormal activity.
To explain, just a real sense of urgency. And Tony was in the master bedroom, and
I'd gone in to take some photos. I was walking around with the camera, just kind of snapping pictures.
And we got some anomalous photos as well. But he started talking about how he wasn't feeling real well, and I went into that room and I started smudging the windows in that room, And as I'm doing the last window, which is the south window of the master bedroom, I just started turning around, and out of the corner of my eye, I see him just lift up and be thrown backwards, probably about 4 foot. He hit the door that had been open to the room. He hit the door hit the wall, and he like just slid down the door, dropped down the door, and I screamed. Renee thought that somebody had tripped or something, but she came around the corner.
I walked around the corner and I saw Tony down on the floor, and the look on his face, he was scared. Anybody in that situation would have been. I looked over, saw his boot like clear off over here, and kind of trying to assess the situation and what had happened. And I saw Deborah talking to him, "Stay here, Tony, stay with him, fight it." You could see the veins in his neck where he was struggling to get back up.
I was trying to lift him up, and you could tell by the strain in his neck muscles.
Trying to get up, and something was just holding me. I couldn't move, and I was really straining to get up, and at the same time scared because it had felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. I mean, it hit me hard enough that I was wearing laced up work boots, and I flew out of my boots.
I remember standing there thinking, there's no way anybody could possibly fake that. I mean, what's going on here? He's obviously trying to get up.
I was trying to get up and couldn't, and I remember Renee coming around the corner and saying,
"Whoever you are, in the name of God, you must release him. This is God's child." And he did not get back up, and I said, "I demand," and I started screaming, and I said, "I demand you, in God's name, to release him, now." And just like that, he was released.
For many people, a chance to experience a real ghost is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And for Angie Lyle of Kansas City's Lyle Style Productions, meeting Robbie Thomas and having a chance to shoot some extraordinary footage in a real haunted house was just too good to pass up.
Anyone who's into ghost hunting has heard of Atchison, Kansas, one of the most haunted towns in the U.S., the most haunted town in Kansas. Now, these aren't just your run-of-the-mill haunted houses where there's actors in suits ready to jump out at you. This is the real deal. And when I got an opportunity to tour a closed haunted house with a well-known psychic, Robbie Thomas from Canada, I could not resist. This guy comes to the U.S. from Canada and tours haunted places. And he takes people and lets them feel what it's like to be in a haunted house.
And although a chance to visit a real haunted house may seem like an exciting experience to most, to some, it is their worst nightmare. And that nightmare would begin in January of 1993, shortly after the Pickmans moved into the house on 2nd.
One occurrence in this room, according to Deborah and Tony Pickman, was there was dolls placed in a circular motion on the floor.
And shortly after moving in, we had just little animated little things happening in the house. The night of the bears, we were gone for the majority of the day. When we returned, it was my sister's last evening. She'd been there for a week with us. It was her last evening there. We had gone and rented some movies and planned to just chill out like we had for the whole entire week. And one of us had gone upstairs. I don't remember offhand which one.
I believe it was me.
It was you, yeah, because you came downstairs.
I'd gone upstairs and turned on the light in the nursery, and when I was in there, all the toys, the stuffed animals especially, had been taken off the shelves and put in a perfect circle. I'd come back downstairs and just kind of asked her, what'd you do with the bears upstairs? Or, why'd you put them in a circle?
And I looked at him like, what are you talking about?
Have a clue what I was
He says,
talking
well, they're
about.
all sitting in a circle. I said, well, I didn't do that.
So we all three went upstairs and looked in the nursery, and they were in a circle, like I'd said, and we thought, well, kind of funny, but we kind of assumed that my little brother lived next door, so we thought, well, maybe he come over and played a little trick on us or something. So we put the bears back up on the shelves and in the crib and everywhere else they went. Shut the light off, and we proceeded to come back down the stairs, and we didn't even make it halfway down the stairs, and the light switch flicked back on in the room. So we all three kind of looked at each other, because we were all three together, so we knew none of us did it. So we ran back up the stairs, and we looked in the room, and in just that short, it couldn't even been 2 minutes, that short amount of time, the bears were right back in that circle.
I mean, there was no getting around, well, we must have a ghost.
But that wouldn't be the only time there was a bear problem at the Sallie house.
It was shortly after the bear incident, and Tony had his brother over, and they were talking about the night before and what had happened, and the fact that, you know, the bears had moved, and this must be a little child or somebody with an affirmation.
My brother and I were standing in the living room, and we had a teddy bear. I don't know where it's at. And it was sitting on the table the TV was on, had two little side things that you pulled out, and this teddy bear was sitting on the side of it. And we were just kind of, in fact, I think it might have been Greg that dared it, but he said, all right, if you're here, I'm going to take a picture. Why don't you do something for me? And at that same time, that bear just spun around in a circle, and we just, we couldn't believe it.
And in the picture, everything in the picture is in focus except for the center part where the bear
He actually caught it turning in the photo. It was spinning, so you got the motion.
Anyways, the anxiety that brought up between the guys put us in kind of a panic to leave.
We just couldn't believe what we saw. In fact, he left the house and swore he'd never come back, and never did. Never, ever stepped foot in there again.
And so we were collecting everything and collecting the baby and you know, getting him in his car seat, and while he was sitting buckling the baby in the car seat, and
yeah, it felt like I got stung, like from a wasp sting on the back, and didn't pay much attention because we were in a hurry to get out of the house. The baby was crying, and I was pretty scared myself, and we just proceeded to get ready and head over to my parents. And we got to my parents' house, and my back was still stinging quite a bit.
And I figured, oh well, I'll see what bit you. And I lifted his shirt, and there were 3 scratches on his shirt, probably anywhere between 4 and 6 inches long on his lower back. And I think my heart skipped a beat.
Yeah, I remember you
looking
saying,
at
"Oh my
it,
God,"
because that was the first time that I realized that spirit could have a real physical interaction.
The night of the spinning bear would be the first time that Tony and Deborah Pickman would feel forced out of their house. It was a hasty evacuation that would occur a number of times during the 2.5 years the Pickmans called 2nd Street their home. There would be many more attacks, and during those 30 months, the Pickmans would continue to witness and fall victim to a variety of mysterious paranormal behavior.
We had TVs turn on after we would turn them off. We had the ceiling fan, balls would
the chain
turn.
would bounce up and down, like someone was flicking it with their finger.
Pictures would be turned upside down on the
TVs,
walls.
yeah, the TVs would turn off and on like 5 times in a row. You'd turn them off and try to go upstairs to bed, and they'd click while you're walking up the steps, and you'd have to come back down and turn them on.
Michael Esposito is somewhat of an authority on the history of the Sallie house. He recalls a number of paranormal events occurring to the Pickmans.
And since then they had things, they found candles that they had in sconces on their walls with wax melting up. The candles had never been lit, but the wax actually melted up the candle and protruded from the candle. There's a famous story about a rose when they actually started having mediums and shamans coming in to try and tell them what was going on there. They found a rose that was on the kitchen windowsill in a bud vase that was smoldering, and it was burnt from the inside out. The outer leaves were perfect, but all the inner leaves were completely charred. Just before that happened, just before they started having shaman and mediums come in to try and explain what was going on or help see if there was anything there, they had an incident where a teddy bear started having flames shoot out of the top of it.
Barely 6 months into their lease, the Pickmans were looking for answers. With the extraordinary phenomena becoming more erratic and a newborn infant in the house, it was becoming apparent that something would have to be done. But in a small town, there were concerns.
Although we wanted help with what we were going through because we totally didn't understand it or know what to do with it, we also know that we didn't want to be plastered all over TV and, have everybody in town's fingers pointing at us, which inevitably happened anyways.
In June of 1993, the Pickmans would relate their growing concerns about their rental to Barbara Connor. She was the only friend they felt they could trust to be discreet, who was also a psychic, and who lived out of town. Traveling from California, Barbara Connor would be the first real psychic to set foot in what she would later name the Sallie House.
That came about with the first psychic that came into the house. Barbara Connor was her name.
Mm-hmm.
She had picked up on the little girl and said that the little girl told her name was Sallie.
With Barbara's connections in California, it wouldn't be long before film crews were beating a path to the little town on the prairie.
Sightings and unsolved mysteries and a couple different other television productions, approach her afterwards and say, we're really interested in this story and how can we get in touch with these people. And she kind of played the go-between. She gave us the information and said these people are interested.
I think it was because of Barbara that sightings had gotten hold of us.
Sighting, we did get it. We did allow sightings. We gave Barbara permission to let sightings get a hold of us, and we kind of talked through that.
As time went on, word would start to spread about the 2nd Street haunting in the little town of Atchison. The television series Sightings would bring the first of many different television crews and investigation units to the Sallie House beginning in the fall of 1993. The return visits were warranted by the spectacular attacks caught in the early sessions. The footage that would be captured would throw open the doors of the Sallie House, revealing its fantastic secret to an astonished world. Les Smith owns the property at 508 2nd Street, and the Pickman family had been his very first tenants. He became aware of the bizarre activity in his new rental when the Pickmans asked a psychic friend to read the house. That visit would be the first time that the name Sallie would be sensed. It was also that visit which would bring the Sightings television show to this otherwise sleepy little Kansas town.
They wanted to come in here, and I said, yeah, I have no problem. You can come in and do whatever. But Peter James was coming that day, or that night. He was coming with them, and I came by to check the place, make sure it was locked up, and was locking it up. And I came by in the middle of the afternoon, 5 o'clock, and I'm walking through here and checking everything, and I said, Sallie, if there's really, I'm not buying any of this. I'm not. I'm very skeptical. You got to show me. And I'm not buying any of it. And I said, Sallie, if you don't want these people coming in here, you let me know somehow. And they had installed the telephone. I said, here's my phone number. And I wrote my phone number down. I said, you call me somehow, let the phone ring twice. And do it twice so I'll know it's you and you don't want these people coming in. And I'm speaking out loud, talking to myself. So I leave. And next morning they call, they want to come in here. So I said, okay, I'll be over in a few minutes. I'm leaving the house, the phone rings. It rings once, then twice. I go to pick it up, and there's nobody there. So I head for the door again. Just so I'm going outside, the phone rings, and I hear it ring, and I said, I'm going to let go. It rings twice, and it stops. And then I think about what I had said the day before, so I go pick up the phone, and there's static on there, just it scared the hell out of me. It really did. It scared me. That's when I got a very good friend, Father Thomas Flaherty. I called him. I said, Father Tom, this is what happened. Can this happen, or is it my mind? He goes, yes, it can happen. Don't you mess with it. So whatever you said you was going to do it. And but don't you mess with it. He said, then come by and talk to me later. So I come over and let these people in. I said, you got one day, do your stuff and get out. Then I went and talked to Father Tom, and he said, yeah, it's very real, and don't mess with it. And I haven't messed with it since. I never messed with it to start with. I just make comments. But that's what happened. That's the one time it really scared me.
Les Smith is not an easy man to scare. He spent most of his life being an officer of the law. In fact, he and his partner, Joe Budner, were on duty the night this sightings crew began setting up their equipment.
And now these fellows, they had, I think they totaled like $1 million worth of equipment. They had probes and cameras and gadgets and stuff, you know.
But Les and Joe weren't there for the sightings investigation, but they did manage to become a part of it nonetheless.
Including it would go up to a time it was about 10 years ago, and the TV show Sightings was filming, and I had talked to Les and about the TV show coming there and filming and setting up their equipment. So I stopped by the day that they were there. The film crew was there, and I happened to be on duty, and I was in a police uniform when I went into the house. And while he introduced me to everybody, we were standing there talking, and he was against the east side of a room that we were in, a big, it's like a dining room, and it was cold out, and I know for a fact he had secured the windows. There was plastic on the windows. My point being, there was no wind, there was nothing in the room, but one of the gentlemen handed Les a piece of paper which they wanted him to sign of some kind of a contract or waiver or release.
He had me sign a contract, and he was standing, I was right over there by that chair, and I walked over to sign. I said, yeah, you can go ahead and film, do whatever you want to do. And he's holding the clipboard with the contract, and I'm signing it. While I'm signing it, the end of the paper just started fluttering up on the tablet, and I said, what the heck, you know? And I look at it, and I look over my shoulder, and Joe's standing behind me, and he sees it too.
The paper just began to flutter, just started shaking. And I'm watching him, his hands are still. He looks at it, he looks up at me, I looked at him, and he said, did you see that? I said, yeah, I saw that. What are you doing? He says, I'm not doing anything.
So we both saw it. The guy holding the clipboard, he's looking the other way. He's not looking. I said, you see that? And Joe says, I did.
It's moving. And about that time, one of the gentlemen from the film crew said, she's here. She's in the room. He says, just stay where you're at. I said, sure. And he started, they got some probes or equipment out, and they're looking for her energy. He said, there she is, and they would feel around. And they went and checked the windows, make sure there was no wind. Said, she's in here. Then the gentleman turned to me and said, she doesn't like you. She doesn't like that uniform. She doesn't want you here. And I said, not a problem. I can leave.
So we left. And that was very strange. What was making the paper flutter, I don't know.
And if Les and Joe thought what they saw was strange, it was a good thing they left when they did. As Tony would soon find out, the lights and cameras of the sightings crew would bring the Sallie House ghost to life.
Most of it, I had a lot of them when they weren't there, but it seemed like when they did come up, I don't know if it's energy from cameras or I really can't explain it, or the people.
I don't really recall that many scratches when the cameras weren't there. It was almost
Really?
as if it was like a show-off kind of a thing.
During their unprecedented 5 visits to Atchison, the sightings crew would witness a number of alarming attacks, some of which were captured on film. 8 sightings broadcasts would be dedicated to these sessions.
They have about 9 minutes of uncut, focused in on his torso where the scratch was forming. And they said sightings and some of the people that reviewed that footage for authenticity said it was probably some of the most remarkable footage that they'd ever seen because it was uncut for that entire 9 minutes.
During the sightings sessions, a vast array of electronic equipment was deployed to search for and measure any anomaly that may occur. As it turned out, the investigation was shifted from being focused on the house to keeping an eye on Tony.
Yeah, they'd set me in a rocking chair in the living room for
was that all-night vigil?
Yeah, it was like 11 to 12 hours, and with my shirt off. And Kerry Gaynor, who I have a lot of respect for. He was a really good
parapsychologist.
He was sitting
He was sitting catty-cornered, I mean, like the chair that's sitting next to us, right next to Tony, and having conversations with him.
And while he's talking, scratches would just
show up.
Yeah, I can't even say they formed. They would just be there.
He would throw his hands up and he'd say,
"Here's another
we
one.
have another scratch." And I was sitting right here. He was so flabbergasted. He was so beside himself on how this could be happening right in front of him, and him not catching, the actuality of it happening.
After watching dozens of malignant scratches form time and time again, a producer from one of the shows retired from the field. According to others on the crew, he was having a hard time reconciling his traditional faith with what he was witnessing at the Sallie house.
Producers, early on, I think the involvement in what he witnessed in, filming and directing the segments, I think it kind of shattered his belief system. Or
he more or less told him he wouldn't come back.
Yeah, he was done with field
desk
work.
job.
He was done being out in the field. It was difficult for him.
But what if the Sallie house ghost has influence that reaches beyond that of the structure on 2nd Street?
Later that day, I was off work and I met up with Les to talk about what the film crew had done and what they'd seen and what we had seen. So since it was winter, it got dark pretty early, and we decided to take a ride back up to the house.
First time we drove by, and we was talking about the paper fluttering, and we go by here, and as we go by, the lights on my truck go out, and the radio, we listened to the radio, you just started hearing static on it.
As we approached the house, we was in a truck. It was an older Ford, and the headlights was the old push-pull button type headlights on the dash. And as we go by the house, we're like maybe 20-30 yards from the house, his headlights go out. And I said, "What'd you turn your headlights off for?" He goes, "I didn't." I said, "Yeah, right." He goes, "No, I didn't. I really didn't." And as he looks down, and the button was in. They had been on just previous. He turns it on, and as we go right in front of the house, we had the radio on, and it went staticky. Just went to static, So he continued driving north for about 5 blocks, where we pulled into a parking lot to talk about what we had just witnessed, what we'd just seen. And we thought, let's drive by again. As we go by, heading south by the house, the dome light comes on. Now, the button, as I said, it's a push-pull button you have to turn on the dome light. His hand was on the steering wheel. I mean, I was watching him. I watched him, and he says, "I didn't do that." We made the 3rd pass, and again, the headlights went out. And we made 3 different passes, and each time something happened. Lights went off, lights came on, radio went staticky, just by that house. Not before, not after. It never happened again. It's never happened since.
For 2 years, the television crew would return, each time collecting more and more incredible data, albeit at the expense of Tony's decaying health.
It had gotten so bad that at one time I remember the cable guy being there at the house to hook up cable, and he's talking to me. Next thing I remember, he's patting me on the face, waking me up, asking me if I was all right, because I couldn't sleep in the house. That was she worked days, I worked nights. When I was home at night, I'd be in the master bedroom upstairs trying to sleep, and I was hearing whispering. It sounded to me like 6 different people whispering in my ears at one time, and I could never make it out, but it was just like, and it would be right in my ear, and I scratching in the wall behind the bed would just drive me nuts. It just sounded like somebody just inside the wall just scratching to get out.
And each time they came up, it successively got more damaging for Tony. He got scratched every time they came up. And every time it was a little bit more and a little bit more, to where his body looked like a war zone.
Yeah, I didn't think I could take it anymore at times. When I'd hear they were coming back, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can go through this.
After the sightings crew left town, Deborah and Tony Pickman were hoping that the activity in the Sallie house would subside. Then one morning in the kitchen, Tony, for the first time, would come face to face with Sallie.
I felt the first time I saw an apparition was of a little girl in the kitchen. I'd come home from work and walked in the kitchen to get something to drink and poured some orange juice in a glass, and I turned around, not 5 foot from me is this little girl dressed from the 1800s just staring back, and she looked just as surprised to see me as I did her. It scared me to death. I dropped my glass, it shattered all over the floor, and as soon as I dropped it, she was gone. I took off running.
That was the first apparition Tony would see, but it wouldn't be the last.
One day it had gotten so bad that, and it's probably my scariest time in the house, was I was trying to sleep and I was hearing the whispering start off and then the scratching. And I still shake when I talk about it. I remember laying there in bed, and what looked like, you know how dust particles come through a window sometimes, you kind of see them like, it kind of started out like that, and then it just kept getting darker, and pretty soon it took the shape of this woman, and she moved over to the bed, and I mean, I was just, oh man, I was in a panic. And I'm just kind of scooting back in the bed while she's approaching me, and all of a sudden her arm just shot out at me, and I remember she had this black lace glove on, and I remember her saying, "I'm gonna," and when she said that, her hand came towards me, and she just disappeared. I never thought you could get so scared to where you couldn't scream, and that's what happened. I could get nothing to come out, and that even makes you more scared.
Shortly following this incident, the Pickmans would leave the Sallie house.
Knowing Deborah and Tony for what I have known and seen in sightings and unsolved mysteries, and the corridor of which Tony's gone through, and that living that life at the Sallie house, you know, it's amazing. It truly is. Coming down to Atchison, Kansas, and making this the tour stop, it was phenomenal. They opened their arms up to me. They said, yes, come on down. You know, it's very difficult in getting the time to sit with Tony and Deborah on any given day, but they made time.
Several years later, Michael Esposito would meet the Pickmans and become part of the ongoing investigation. During a seance, he would shoot the amazing footage you're about to see.
Using a parabolic microphone, Tony was listening to it. We were conducting an EVP session up in one of the bedrooms. Renee Leaker, Bird's mom, asked one of the specters, one of the ghosts that we think inhabit the house, Joanne Barnes, who actually lived next door but was married to one of the Finneys, spent a lot of time in a mental institution and was accused of killing her son by trying to gas herself and her son to death in the house next door. She lived, unfortunately, and spent a lot of time in a mental institution after that. But Renee Leaker asks, now Joanne, we've asked you this many times before, we'd like to know if you want us to bring clergy into the house. At that moment, Tony, who was still listening to the parabolic microphone, grabbed his stomach and fell backwards, screamed out an explicative, and caught himself and was a little ashamed of it, but he uttered, "That burnt." And I was filming at the time, and we filmed him pulling his shirt up. We turned the lights on, filmed his shirt ring up, and we've got red marks on his stomach, and all the hair on his stomach was pilled up, like if you were to run a lighter over your forearm, how the hair pills up. And more pills were forming, and there was an extremely dense smell of sulfur at that time. It was absolutely horrific at the time.
What you are about to see is actual footage shot during the attack by Michael Esposito. It is the first time this footage has ever been broadcast.
Those of you that are Catholic, would you like for us to get the priest to come in and bless the house? We've discussed this before, and we need a definitive answer. You okay? Oh, man. Just got burned. Let me see. Burnt or shocked?
Huh? Burnt.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Well, now does that mean yes or no?
let's leave.
That means no.
Right here.
You would have felt the heat, Doug. Look, and there's a
It's
patch starting to
actually-
form. Check it
No,
out.
there's burnt hair there.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
a singed,
singed.
yeah, singed hair. You could even smell it. And in fact, that's what that sulfur smell was hair burning. Yep.
Holy Christmas.
Just felt a bunch of heat scared.
The story of the Sallie house is one that remains unsolved. Despite visits from a number of psychics and dozens of paranormal investigations, questions still remain.
Haunted, I would say inhibited. Spirit goes anywhere. Sallie, I would say closest thing I could come is Sallie. And with me giving the 9 different names that were recorded in that home, Sallie would be a doll.
Is Sallie a doll? A plaything to a child who once lived at this house? Or is it the name of a tormented little girl who suffered horribly at the hands of an unfit physician? Can a soul cross over the bounds of death and time? Is there something in the Sallie house that lays outside our comprehension? Are the anomalies experienced echoes from a world we cannot see or understand? And does the Sallie house mark the boundary between us and what lies beyond?
Where's Sallie? My name is Sallie.
We had a camera and a tripod set here filming them, and we came up because we had to change the audio tape, and Jeremy Pippin and I were standing here, and we were looking up, and just right here, right above us, did you just hear the, just the furniture moving, just right across it, just that loud.